Okay then, you've decided to revise Religion, Poverty and Wealth. It's for the Ethics 1 unit, and off we go. Now, Christian views about wealth. In this particular topic, there are quite a few biblical quotes which you may find helpful to use in the exam. Here's just a few of them now. For the love of money is the root to all kinds of evil. It is easier for camel to go through the eye of the needle than for a rich man to go to heaven. Worded a bit differently there, but later on we're actually going to question whether or not this quote was said in the literal meaning of eye of the needle, because obviously in this sense, in this context, it puts it across as it's impossible for a rich man to enter heaven. And Matthew 6:24 is quite a good one to use. No one can serve two masters. You cannot serve both God and money. Now, taking this into account, it would be fair to say in your exam that a Christian may believe that people should be more concerned with gaining spiritual gifts in heaven than gaining as much money as possible. In other words, don't be greedy. In this life, in heaven, you'll get your reward. If you're a Roman Catholic, you're likely to believe that rich nations, such as America, might have a responsibility to ensure that nations who are not rich are able to develop themselves. This might be a place like Ethiopia. And if you're a Church of England Christian, you may take a more modern approach in economics and politics by saying that due to basic humanity and mutual interest in survival, the world does require a fair system of economic relations between countries. Christian views on the causes of hunger, poverty and disease. Now, this isn't a particularly nice slide. It is full of stereotyped wraths of God sort of stuff, and this is one of them here, where quite a few religious teachers have been known, mostly in America, to preach HIV and AIDS as the gay plague, and that it's God's wrath to give gay people HIV and AIDS, and otherwise known as it's God's righteousness judgment on homosexuality, and that He doesn't like it. We've got here the story of Job, and this could be one reason why God might cause hunger, poverty and disease. It's to test your faith. And in the story of Job, basically the devil challenged God by saying that Job will lose faith in you if he goes through such tormenting and pain and suffering. And God said, okay, do what you will with him. I can promise you he won't lose faith in me. And in this particular moment, there's Job's three mates here that are all saying to him that you're going through all of this suffering because God is punishing you, and he's getting a bit confused here, and I believe this is meant to be the devil down here, or it's the other way around actually. That's Job there and that's God actually, but yeah, basically Job doesn't lose faith. And now, one cause of poverty, hunger and disease is through natural disasters, one of which might be flooding, and in the Bible obviously there's a very famous flood, and this is with the story of Noah's Ark, and God's intention here was to rid the earth of sin. That might be one cause of it, to kill off all the sinners. And there was, with the Boxing Day tsunami, a quite horrible Christian website set up in America where on one of the banners of the website it said praise God, or what was it? Hold on, I've got it written down here somewhere. Yeah, sorry, not praise God, thank God for the tsunami because it killed so many homosexuals. Quite a nasty phrase, but that's what they believed. Now, contradictions. So if this sort of thing was to come up in your question E, and you'd have to put some holes in the argument, a great couple of things to think about here would be in Luke 5:18 right through to Luke 5:25. Jesus actually heals a paralysed man who is in this state of paralysis because of his sins. Now, if God is to use disease, poverty and hunger and all that to through his wrath as almost like a punishment for sinners, or to rid the earth of sinners, why on earth would Jesus go ahead and do this? And going back to up here where HIV and AIDS is preached as the gay plague, it's God's wrath again to get like slap back on gay people. Contradiction to here is, well, why do heterosexuals get HIV and AIDS? There are plenty of straight people out there that suffer from this disease. What's the deal with that? Now, biblical teachings about caring for others. The Book of Leviticus comes into this. Now, I should point out that Leviticus has been known by many Christians to be on the verge of an extremist. There's a quote in here that puts it across that being gay is an abomination and stuff. And in result, not a lot of a few Christians, one of which I know actually, just rejects the entire Book of Leviticus in the Bible as a whole. So this might not actually apply to some Christians, but it says in the Book of Leviticus that we should help out and support the poor without charging them interest. So if you were to say to a poor person, here's a tenner, go buy yourself some food, it would be wrong to, when they come back with the change, and you say, well, hold on, wait, $5 interest that I set on that tenner. And the Book of Mark, this again is within the Bible, and here's your classic "love thy neighbour" quote, and which is Mark 12:28 right through to Mark 12:32. Now, it's worth noting that in context of this quote, there's a bit before it, which is Jesus giving 2 commandments. The first one is about loving God, and the second one here is love your neighbour as yourself. There is no greater commandment than these. So, in other words, if you're a Christian and if you're going to follow commandments, these are the greatest 2. So it's a good priority for a Christian to care about others, or to love thy neighbour, because Jesus said that there is no commandment greater than this. Christian Aid, a very Christian-founded charity, so that there's one example of caring for others through charity work. And it was said in Luke 4:18 that Jesus was explaining his mission to be helping the poor. So all these charity works that are Christian founded, you may say, follow the footsteps of that mission of Jesus. And in Luke 20 right through to Luke 6 to right through to Luke 20 to 21 is this quote here. Now this is quite a bit to remember if you're going to use this in your exam, but basically it suggests that that Jesus promises happiness in the future of heaven. So like where you go, blessed are you who hunger now, for you will be satisfied. Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. This means heaven. And nowhere in this quote does he actually say or do anything to improve their lives at the time, in the present. So some Christians might not go ahead with all this Christian aid because Jesus hasn't necessarily done it here. The use of money, again going back to this old quote from the first slide, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. So basically, if you're going to have money, be wise with it, don't get loads of it and be greedy and love it, because it will lead to evil. And this is a very good one indeed to talk about with uses of money in giving it to the poor. Luke 16:19 right through to Luke 16:31 is the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. Now you may know this already, but if you don't, it's worth just reading through this. You might want to pause it here because I just don't have the time to read out all of that. But okay. And another few biblical quotes here. is Exodus 22:25. This again backs the point of he's not here, but of Leviticus saying that money should not have interest put on it. And now this is hold on. Yeah, okay. And again, Christian aid. If you're going to use money, give some to charity every now and then, or as Jesus has taught many times, to give away your money, because, as he says here, it is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of the needle than for a rich man to go to heaven. Now, there is a debate going on whether or not he meant the literal eye of the needle, or he actually meant this eye of the needle. Now, this is a gateway to Jerusalem. To Jerusalem. I'm not sure where actually, but got it written down? No, I don't. Okay, this is a gateway to a place. You can find it easily if you put it in on Google. But this little doorway here, I've got a better picture of it somewhere. This little doorway here, I think that's a model actually, that's not the real thing, but that is the eye, is called the eye of the needle. Now, if you look in scale comparison, for a camel to get through that would be pretty tricky indeed, but not necessarily impossible. So whether or not Jesus was referring to the actual to an actual needle would certainly put it across that for a rich man to go to heaven is impossible. But in this case, and the likelihood that he was referring to this gateway, given that a lot of things were weaved together manually by hand and not by needles back in the day, I believe, but this would imply that it's just a bit tricky for a rich man to go to heaven, but not necessarily impossible. So that's a good debatable thing in your question E, if you want to put your holes in the argument. And how should Christians care for the poor? Now here we have from Matthew 25:31 right through to Matthew 25:46, the parable of the sheep and the goats. Now I checked with your teachers on this because it's quite a long parable, but basically you've got the sheep over here who represent people that they weren't actually sheep being dealt with or goats being dealt with. They were people that were on Judgment Day, and this I believe is God in the middle here, but all of the sheep went to heaven because they helped out other people. The goats didn't, but the goats were questioning God when he says that when I was hungry you didn't feed me, when I was thirsty you didn't give me water. They all responded with, well hold on, you never asked us to. And he says, yes, well when you refused to help other people, that was a refusal to help me. There's a lot of philosophical context behind there that it's worth checking with your teacher on. But when the parable is famous for one of the sheep speaking out, and when God said, when I was hungry, you gave me food. When I was thirsty, you gave me water. One of the sheep spoke out and said, "Don't change your mind about sending me to heaven, but I didn't actually do any of that." And he says, well, when you gave food to an actual person, when you gave water to an actual person, you were doing that for me. So it's good to help for the poor because you'll get to heaven, is the moral of that story. Again, the classic example of how you should care for the poor through charity is a great way for Christians to respond. All of these, Christian Aid, Cathode, Clear Fund, are Christian-based, Christian-founded charities that go mainly off of Christian teachings and the working of churches. And again, if you're going to give money to the poor, don't charge interest. Very last slide, nearly all the way through it now. Christian teachings about the moral and immoral occupations. Now, if you just want to note down what a moral and immoral occupation are, an immoral occupation is a sinful act against a religious teaching, and a moral is an act which actually follows religious teachings, but in a respected / good manner. So if, I really hope it doesn't, but if somewhere in the Bible it said that murder was okay, and you went out and murdered someone, that wouldn't be considered a moral act because you went with the religious teachings, because to go out and kill someone isn't really respectable nor a good manner. If, however, you went out and helped someone who was suffering from disease, poverty or wealth because of the religious teaching, love thy neighbour, then that would be a moral act, because that is out of respect and good manner. And we've got here just a quick table just to sum up a few moral and immoral occupations in Christianity. Immoral, your basic prostitute, drug dealing, and your arms trade. Now that is in Christianity apparently to be involved with a job that may hurt someone physically or mentally would be sinful. To your arms trade there, given that results in killing people, is certainly an immoral occupation. Your doctor and nurse, that's debatable. Well, for all these question marks, it means they're debatable, but because while they may be loving people that cure you from horrible diseases and essentially help the poor, if a poor person comes in with a disease, they cure them. They also have the authority to put people down through euthanasia. Don't forget from the recent medical ethics video, which through do not kill commandment is not good indeed. A pub landlord, again this is very vague, but the only reason that this is debatable is because of the vast amounts of alcohol included in this job, and some landlords, just to make money, get people drunk and then keep giving them alcohol so that they're buying more and more. Is that all I've got? Yep, that's okay. Left a few blank here. A few moral occupations now. A vicar, or just anyone in the church, really, because that's close to God. That's a pretty decent job to go with in Christianity. A teacher, again, that's debatable now, because that might be an R.S. teacher, where you're putting across the views of Christianity or religion. But if you're a science teacher, then that may be immoral, because you may be putting across atheist views on, say, evolution, which sort of goes against the view that God made man and the fact that man evolved from monkey, ape, and so on. You've got an entertainer. I've starred that. You'll find out why in a bit. And a doctor and nurse, again, debatable, because they can have people killed through euthanasia. But on the plus side, on the moral side, to the occupation of being a doctor or a nurse, they can be very helpful and very nice people indeed through curing you from disease. Now, an entertainer, don't put entertainer in the exam. I'm just leaving you with this as an interesting thing before I leave you. But in Matthew 25:14-30, it says that God does not want us to waste our talent. So if you're going through, say if you have a talent or a knack for being a comedian, if you were to go as an entertainer or as a comedian, then that would be a moral occupation, because you're not wasting that talent. If you have a hidden talent, it would be God wouldn't want you to waste that. Okay, I don't quite know why I've left these blank. I think I was just making the table and then I forgot to delete these cells. But if you can think of any moral or immoral occupations you just want to fill this table in yourself, by all means go for it. And that's me done, I believe. Yep, that's me done. Okay, goodbye.